Both are Desis, both are Indians, and this is a very special relationship.
Just before he touched down for the G20 summit in Delhi, Rishi Sunak told journalists he got a new nickname here.
The Indian media has often referred to him as, the son-in-law of the country, India's son-in-law, which he said, I hope, was meant affectionately.
Travelling with his wife Akshata Murthy, daughter of an Indian IT billionaire, this first British PM of Indian heritage to visit the country generated considerable excitement, as well as hopes of edging towards the free trade deal his predecessors promised and failed to deliver.
We're telling our negotiators, get it done by Diwali in October.
It wasn't done by Diwali and isn't expected to be done in tomorrow's meeting with India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi either. His government's demands for greater visa freedoms agitating the Conservative right back in Britain. But it's Russia's invasion of Ukraine casting the longest shadow here. This morning, 3 were killed by its bombs in Kherson, and President Zelensky's hometown was hit too, killing 1 and injuring 52.
Some very important breaking news on the G20 right before the summit begins. No consensus has been arrived. The Ukraine war has become a big sticking point.
What couldn't be agreed before the summit opened is unlikely to be delivered by its close. Number 10 briefed British journalists that Mr Sunak would ask India to call out its old ally Russia, but perhaps he changed his mind on the plane.
How do you look at India's position on Russia and Ukraine?
Well, it's not for me to tell India what positions to take on international issues, but I know India rightly cares about the international rule of law, the UN Charter and respect for territorial integrity.
Russia is a major supplier of India's weapons and, crucially, its oil. Since the invasion, as other nations stopped buying Russian fuel, India stepped in and started buying a whole lot more, benefiting its economy and rescuing what's left of Russia's. But cutting Russia off would be a political quagmire for Prime Minister Modi and his BJP party too.
Politically, how difficult is it for India to openly criticise Russia?
You will not find any political party really coming forward to criticize or abandon that relationship. If the current BJP government were to call out Russia by name, take a hard stand on Russia, I think they would be, the opposition parties will be up in arms. But I think even if you were to look at the larger public, I don't think there is much support for giving up on Russia.
Notably absent are President Putin and his ally China's Xi Jinping. But they'll still weigh heavy on those leaders who are in Delhi this weekend as they attempt to draft a traditional joint statement, one many Western nations want to explicitly condemn Russia.
Oh, wow.
India's son-in-law, for his part, said he'd do everything he could to hold Russia to account. But can he bring others with him?
Amelia Jern reporting there. Well, earlier I spoke to India's High Commissioner to the UK, Vikram Doraiswamy. I asked him first when the G20 was trying to agree a joint declaration on Ukraine, how that would be possible when the world had stopped buying oil from Russia, but India did not.
So let me first contrast the point that you made that the world stopped buying oil. I'm frankly, you know, the statistics are printed in your own newspapers regularly that Europe continues to buy energy products from Russia, including countries in the EU, etc. Second, the point is, look, we have energy needs to purchase. The current ecosystem doesn't afford us opportunities to buy energy from anybody else right now. We had contracts with Iran, you have sanctions on Iran. We had contracts with Venezuela, you have sanctions on Venezuela. We have to buy energy where energy is available. Our current challenge is that not only are you buying energy products still from Russia, you're also buying it from other places at higher prices than we can afford to pay. So, you're displacing us from the market there too. So there
Does it just make India more politically vulnerable in this sense because you have to rely on Russia for that, so you can't necessarily condemn them?
We are a nation of 1.4 billion people. We have massive energy needs. 80% of our energy is imported from abroad. We have little choice but to buy from wherever it's available and affordable. We can't just switch off all our growth while you choose how you buy and, whom you buy from.
So looking at the bilateral conversation that will be happening between India and the UK, obviously there's going to be the trade deal, which is going to be talked about. What are the main sticking points? India have said that they think it's going to happen at the end of the year. The UK have been a little bit more cagey. When do you think something's going to happen?
Towards the end of the year is a good time. That is the intention that we tried to flag. We're not setting a deadline on it. A trade deal should be concluded when both sides are ready to conclude a trade deal. In other words, when both sides feel that they have progressed to a point where there's a good package that's mutually beneficial.
Is it visas that's the sticking point?
This is something that your press keeps talking about. We have never said this is about immigration visas. We have not once said that. Indian media doesn't say this. Our Indian negotiators haven't said that. We have clearly made it, made it part of our negotiation that we're looking for areas of progress in services where we have some strengths. You logically will look for your areas of strengths and services. There are areas in goods where we want to be able to make progress together. And there are some associated issues on which both sides are interested in making progress. This is about, for the British side, looking at the broader question on investment certainties. And from our side, issues relating to matters concerning how our expatriates, when they work here, how their contributions to pension pots and insurance, etc., how those are ported back to India when they travel, when they go back at the end of this thing. Nobody has said we're asking for extra visas or anything like that, excepting in areas that are reasonable for both sides under Mode 4 of trade and services, which is about allowing intercompany transfers, which is making those easier, which is about allowing movement of natural persons. That's it.
If we just look at this picture here, this has been seen as almost a homecoming for Rishi Sunak. He said on the plane that he is kind of India's son-in-law. Just what significance is it to have an Indian heritage British Prime Minister? How significant will that be, not just at the G20, but for bilateral conversations?
Look, our relationship with the United Kingdom is a deep and long-standing one with a lot of history behind it. Obviously, the community of people of Indian origin in the UK is a very important part of it. We understand and recognize the extent to which someone like Prime Minister Sunak has captured the imagination, in particular, of all, I think, ethnic minority communities in the UK. And it's a great British story. But it is a British story, right? It's he's obviously the Indian public, the Indian media have been very warmly welcoming of the story that it represents. But we understand and recognize that he is first and foremost a British leader. He's, the leader of a British political party. And we will, of course, engage with the Prime Minister of the UK as the Prime Minister of the UK. His heritage and his ancestry, and of course the fact that his wife was born and brought up in India, is another lovely little extra sort of attraction in it.
Vikram Doraiswamy, thank you very much for coming in. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.